suicide is the second leading cause of death for college students, according to Simon and Lee in 2019 on the Greenville News. Now, every person on campus as a Clemson student has either battled with mental health themselves or knows someone that has battled with these major issues. Now, Clemson University needs to better support our students because with as many that have suffered from this, they are not being properly supported. On February 9th of 2021, I met with a CAP psychologist who dismissed my issues and told me that I needed to go to bi-weekly appointments and not bother him as much. Now, this was incredibly difficult because later that night I made an attempt on my own life. I fell through the cracks, and I feel like now it's time to speak up about the problematic policies and understaffing on Clemson's campus so that we can protect our Clemson family and no one falls through the cracks like I did. Now, I would like to start off by focusing on the main problem, which is Clemson mental health services and being able to seek mental health care. Now, Clemson has not risen to the challenge to protect our students and help adequately supply CAPS psychologists and student accessibility services with proper staff and training. Now, CAPS has a very difficult time setting appointments, and they're often very long wait times. According to Simon and Lee in 2019 on the Greenville News, CAPS is so overwhelmed with the number of patients that they have to refer out to practices off campus. Now, it is very often that students cannot afford this. According to Delano Reynolds, who is the Administrative Director of Suicide Prevention and Mental Health Initiatives, there are currently 4 open positions at CAPS. This was said on April 5th of 2022. Some of these are new positions, and some are positions from where other staff members have left. Now, Clemson University also suffers from a lack of training for groups like student accessibility services. This is incredibly important because students are very uncomfortable with how SAS handles these things and often avoid seeking help in the future. According to Clemson University Human Resources website, there is a policies and procedure for equitable treatment training that only requires agreeing to policies and signing your name on the dotted line. This does nothing to train our staff properly. In March of 2022, I met with a very high-ranking SAS staff member who was incredibly demeaning, asked very difficult questions of me, and was not at all sympathetic, and then told me that I had no business working for the university if I had mental illnesses. According to her, my psychologist's directive for accommodations was wrong because there was no way I could have issues that bad. According to Smith and Applegate in 2018 on the Communication Education Journal, a teacher's view of mental illness and affects academic achievement, behavior, self-esteem, and peer relationships. This is incredibly important because all of the staff members that we interact with can affect how we do for the rest of our lives. Now, Clemson University also lacks sufficient advertising. According to Reynolds on April 5th of 2022, we are looking to create a similar campaign to the Tobacco-Free Campus campaign. This would lead to mental health service resources being listed on the back of doors all over campus that everyone will see, which we simply haven't been able to get the ball rolling on. Now, Clemson University has to resolve these issues, and here are some of the suggestions that I've come up with through my research. Now, I think it's important that we properly allocate the workload that is currently left to CAPS, as well as increasing appropriate training for our personnel that we already have, and then advertising for the resources that we already have so students are aware of what is available to them. Now, while expanding CAPS is a wonderful goal, Clemson University is not prepared for it. We need to start off by properly distributing CAPS workload to other groups on campus that are available to do this. Psychology graduate students are currently not busy with clinical work because Clemson does not offer a clinical program. They could assist with administrative duties with minimal HIPAA and FERPA training. This is already in place due to student workers such as resident assistants. Now, we could also use our tenure line faculty in the psych department who could take on smaller duties from CAPS and use this as service for their tenure line portfolio. This would be incredibly helpful even if it's a small workload off of CAPS. We could also introduce a long-term plan such as a clinical psych program that would allow students to work directly to understand the clinical program and gain experience so that they could then work directly for CAPS, do their internships, and be prepared to work in a clinical field with patients. Now, according to LaBelle and Johnson in 2021 in the Communication Quarterly, 12 months prior to their survey, 87% of students said they were overwhelmed. And in the 30 days prior to their survey, 3 out of 4 students reported moderate to high stress. This shows how important it is that we prepare our staff to take care of our students because they are so stressed and overwhelmed. Now, we need to develop and require more training for the staff that we have because currently there isn't enough and they're not prepared. There's already a Deer Oak seminar on the Tiger Training website that would be incredibly helpful for our staff members, but it's not required. It's an online seminar that would only take 40 minutes out of their day, and every staff member should have to do this. According to Smith and Applegate in 2018 in Communication Education, we can avoid creating new stigmas simply by word choice. These stigmas encourage students not to seek help, and we need to work on that. And if these staff members are not trained, then that's not going to happen. Now, according to Reynolds, the College of Engineering and Applied Sciences has already required Tigers Together training for all staff members, regardless of if they're involved in mental health services or not. This is incredibly important, and I think all colleges should be required to do this. Now, we could also introduce something similar that RAs are already aware of, such as behind closed doors. This is where one participant or multiple acts out a scenario and other participants respond. This would be very useful in letting faculty and staff get used to these scenarios. Now, Clemson University also needs to properly advertise for the resources that we already have. One of the events that was under-advertised for was the event that happened on April 14th at 7 p.m., according to Pride at Clemson University, where Mary Lambert and Wyatt Hermanson talked about their own identities and mental health struggles. This would have been very beneficial, but most students weren't aware of it. There was also a Suicide Prevention Week that was held for the first time this year in March of 2022, according to Morrow at the Tiger. This would have been very helpful to know about for many students, but it wasn't advertised enough. There's also a group on Tiger Quest called Mindset. Their goal is to create a judgment-free zone and make students comfortable and feel supported. I've never heard of them before I started this speech, and I think that's very devastating considering I've been here for 2 years. We need to make sure that our students are aware of the resources that are around them, whether they be student-run or school-supported. Now, according to Pace et al., in 2018 on the health communication, they asked students about useful locations. 78.6% of them reported that Residence Hall would be a very useful location to help encourage and show the resources that we have on campus, whether it be flyers or other things. 61.6% said that table toppers and dining halls would also be useful, and 45.2% said that classrooms and hallways would be beneficial. Now, this is incredibly important because it would be so easy to put up flyers and posters in these areas, but Clemson hasn't done it yet. According to Ma and Nan in 2018 on the Atlantic Journal of Communication, narratives are also much better than statistical or didactic messaging because, similar to the Instagram page at If You're Reading This Clemson, we need to make sure that students understand that they are supported and hear the stories of their fellow students and alumni. Now, my plan will work because I don't only rely on increasing Clemson's budget, but we need to use our resources to the full extent. According to Simon and Lee in 2019 on the Greenville News, we received a $100,000 grant in 2014, and if we did need to increase our budget, we could encourage our alumni to match that and challenge them. Now, the only reason that I can see that we really need this budget is if we decided to add a new psychology program, which after a couple years will increase revenue, tuition, and growth of the school itself. This would help us from stop losing students to UNC Chapel Hill and the University of South Carolina. According to Simon and Lee in 2019 on the Greenville News, Daniel Solomon was a Clemson student who was suicidal, but he turned his life around and took care of himself and sought help, and now he teaches others about the warning signs of depression. I think that the best final takeaway for everyone watching this speech is that Clemson is very overwhelmed and their staff is undertrained within the mental health sector. We could seriously improve this with minimal monetary investment, but Clemson hasn't taken that step yet. And I think it's time that Clemson University better support our students, because I really want to see suicide removed from its place as the second leading cause of death for college students. Thank you.